So, Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya to all of you. Today we are going to have the last session of our studies of the Jataka. We have been looking at various aspects of the Jataka so far, and we have been reading a Jataka tell in every session, and we are discussing about it. Today we will not be looking at a lot of technical aspects of the Jataka tells as we have been doing. Today we'll be looking at Jataka tells, particularly Vessantara Jataka from the point of view of how it impacted the various societies or its journey from the antiquity to today. And I think it's a very interesting way to look at how the stories or the narrative literature affect the various communities, particularly in the case of Vesantara Jataka. So let me share my presentation. So I titled today's presentation, the last session, as the Ethnography of Vessantara Jataka, and subtitle is What Buddhists Read and What Buddhists Do. So we know for sure that wait a minute. We know that the Buddhists in the past, where they advocated what is called the study of the Dhamma, and in fact there is a beautiful sutta where Buddha talks about Dhamma, Yoga, Bhikkhu, and Jai Bhikkhu. And he talks about the conflict between them. Dhamma Yoga is, of course, the bhikshus who are devoted to study of the Dhamma, and Jai bhikshus are, of course, dedicated to, meditation. And the Buddha categorically says that none of them is superior to each other. And I think that's very interesting sort of Buddha's, take on how important is the study of the suttas. And in a way, the Buddha is the one who teaches us, and we are the Shravaka, listening to the Buddha's teachings. But as Buddhism advanced, we saw that Buddhism became the quote unquote religion of books, and the study and the writing has been the part and parcel of what we call the Bhikshu Sangha. Why Bhikshu Sangha? Because there is this what is called the what scholar Stephen Collins says homosocial group, where some people are dedicated completely to the study or the preservation of the Buddha's teachings by way of writing and so on and so forth. So the Buddhists, of course, have been reading, writing for a long time, and that's a one very important aspect. There is a lot on that as to how the art of writing and art of reading cultivated by the Buddhist monks, and particularly what is called the Dhamma Yoga Bhikshu. And the Buddha says that studying sutta, with an aim to apply it in our lives can have as much benefit. It can lead to the enlightenment. Like people claim that the meditation is the only way, but the Buddha says that no, there are two ways, and he says that the two types of bhikshu should not be in conflict with each other: the Dhamma Yoga Bhikshu and the Jai Bhikshu. Jai is, of course, the word for the meditation. So, we talk about the textual studies, we talk about reading, which is part and parcel of the society. But, the anthropologists or the Buddhist scholars have been looking at what the Buddhists do. And that's a very important area, when we enter into not just the textual study of the in Buddhism, but also what people are actually doing in their lives. For example, what the Buddhists of Thailand are doing, not only in Thailand per se country, but in the different parts of Thailand itself. What the Buddhists are doing, what Buddhists are doing in Sri Lanka, what Buddhists are doing in Japan, Korea. And I think that's a field of study which is very important. So, we are going to look at what Buddhists do from the ethnographical perspective, anthropological perspective. And there are some very good scholarly books that are available now, which communicates to us what, how the Jataka, particularly Vesantara Jataka, has affected it. So today, it's going to be a little bit longer session. We will go 15 minutes extra, but that's worth it. So what is in the last session so far? We studied multiple functions and multiple dimensions of the Jataka birth stories. We also read 5 Jataka birth stories in the 5 session. I browsed content of many birth stories. We passingly saw a lot of Jataka stories. And the texts are important to study, and the textual study was emphasized in the previous sessions. We should read and listen to Jataka stories individually and collectively. Like, it can individually and collectively has two aspects. Like individually means me and collectively means other people also, but also stories, like one story and many stories. The textual studies is important. It's also important to study what the Buddhists are actually doing with the text and how they engage with the Jataka birth stories. This is the area of ethnography, which is a very interesting area as we are going to see today. And in this session, we will read Jataka story in short version to begin with. Then we will study the impact of Jataka, Vessantara Jataka on various Buddhist communities. So let's go ahead. Some words on Vessantara Jataka before we begin reading it. It is the longest Jataka story that runs into 100 pages and there are 786 verses in it. It is known, it's also known as 100 verses Jataka story. This is the last story in the Jataka Katha or Jataka Attavandana. And this is the antepenultimate birth of the Bodhisattva before he goes to the Tushita and waits for his arrival on the earth. And the story is the culmination of the perfection or excellence in Dana Paramita, in which Vesantara gives a wealth, kingdom, and his family, his children, and his wife. So very interesting story, very emotive story, very emotional story, and we're going to look at the story briefly. It's found in many versions and in all the Buddhist cultures. So it is not just in the so-called southern Buddhist cultures like Burma, Myanmar, and Southeast Asian countries, but it's also found in Tibet, in China, in the Gandhara. So it's like story found everywhere. It's originated in India. The story originated in India. I'm going to show you where it originated, and there are many controversies around Vesantara story everywhere. If wherever there is this Vesantara story, there is a controversy. Some people agree with some parts, some people don't agree with some parts, and it's kind of creates a conflict of values. It's not that straightforward. So it's very interesting. And some of the modern people even criticized excess in the dana and the patriarchal elements in it. We are going to look at that in a bit. So the Jataka story, particularly Vesantara Jataka, is not just a story, but it is the heart of the ritual, storytelling, and collective psyche of the Theravada Buddhists. It is said that in the pre-modern times, the Vesantara story was so popular that the Buddhist in the southern Buddhist world, knew the Vesantara story, but they didn't know the story of the Buddha. That was the impact of the Vesantara story, and it has inspired many festivals, recitals, dramas, poems, art, and it's forms the emotional makeup of the Buddhist in the Theravada lands. Which is changing slowly because of the modern things. But in the pre-modern times, the Vesantara Jataka formed the emotional makeup of the Buddhist in the Theravada lands. It is the single most popular story in South and Southeast Asian temple art. The way it is depicted, right from Pagan in Burma to the Golden Temple in Burma and in the Thai monasteries, we can say confidently that it's the single most popular story in South and Southeast Asian temple arts. It has hundreds of variations, hundreds, if not thousands. Sometimes the ending changes, sometimes the characters change, the emphasis on various khanda changes. It is a part and parcel of the Buddhist culture and Buddhist societies. It can be considered as one of the greatest dramas and epics in the world literature. Its status is that high, linguistically, narratively, in structure, in the poetry. It's an epic. It's an epic, and it can be considered as one of the greatest dramas and the epics in the world literature. And interestingly, it is the first Jataka narrated by the Buddha when he went to Kapilavastu, and some people, some Shakyans refused to respect him, but he showed Yamak Pratihara, and then there was a shower of the lotus, and the Buddha said that similarly in the past there was a shower of the lotus, and he relates the story of the Vesantara Jataka. So it is the first Jataka story told by the Buddha, and it is said that its disappearance will mark the beginning of the end of Buddhism in this era. So that's the importance of the Vessantara Jataka. And the Mongolian saying about Vessantara Jataka is this: if you want to cry, read Vessantara story. If you want to laugh, read a different story. It's so emotional that if we read it, or even if we watch it, or in the dramatized form, it has that element of moving us to the tears. So a lot of the audience of the Vesantara Jataka or the rituals or the dramas were the women, and the anthropologists have studied them, and they have found out the emotive power of the Vesantara story. So I'm just going to talk about what is called the chiastic structure of the Vesantara Jataka by Venerable Hui Feng. She talks about how the story has like, the element of chiastic structure. Like, for example, when there in the language, when we say, don't ask what we can do for what your country is doing for you. Ask what you have done for the country. This is a chiastic arrangement, reversal. So you see, the plot is chiastic, and this is what is the chiastic structure of the Jataka tells look like. I got this into presentation because I wanted to just relate you briefly. The story of the present, the Buddha returns to Shakyan's Kapilvastu. The elders are conceited but humbled by the Buddha's twin miracle, a rain falls. Then the Buddha relates the story of the past. Vessantara is born, Queen Pusati, his mother, is granted 10 boons, and a rain bestowing white elephant appears, and Vessantara marries Madri, and is consecrated as king. Then Vessantara gives away many gifts, many gifts, incalculable gifts. If you look at the text, he gives the white elephant to the Brahmins from Kalinga. He cheated by the Brahmins of Kalinga to give the uh, elephant, and the people of his kingdom are very angry because that white elephant brought so much rain to Jatuttara, the kingdom of Shivis. And then he is exiled. He's sent to exile by his father, and he goes with his wife and his son Jari, because he's born in the Jali net, and Kannajina, because she was found, her skin like black, a deer or something like that. And they establish a hermitage on what is called the Mount Vanka. Very interesting mountain. And, there is a beautiful description about the mountain and the forest in the Vessantara Jataka. And then there is a Karar Brahmin, Jujuka, from Kalinga, and Maddi has omen dream. Jujuka claims Jali and Kannajina, who are given away. So you see, this is the story of giving up. Donation, ati. Too much. We cannot, normal person cannot give so much. And that kind of a value conflict gives us a lot of leverage to think emotively. So Shakka appears as a Brahmin and claims Maddi, who is given away in the jungle. Then Vessantara declares his goal of omniscience, that he wants to become the Buddha. And he says, both Jali and Kannajina, I let another take, and Maddi or Madri, my devoted wife, and all for sake of wisdom. So he is so devoted to the enlightenment that he's ready to give up the most dearest thing to him, including his wife. He has already given the kingdom. He has donated so much. He's ready to give his head. He's ready to give his body. He's ready to give everything for the sake of enlightenment. And he says, not hateful is my faithful wife, nor hate my children are, but perfect knowledge, that is enlightenment, to my mind is something dearer far. Then Sakka returns Maddi, grants 8 boons. Then Jali and Kannajina led to Jatuttara, the capital city. Sanjaya, his father, has a premonitory dream. He reclaims and reunites the children. Jujuka rewarded, but later dies. The character Jujuka is very famous now in Thailand. He's a very crooked Brahmin. His description is so, grotesque. If you look at it, he's like a ogre. So, you see, then Sanjaya, Fusti, children, and elephant go to the hermitage to receive Vessantara. Rain falls on the now reunited family. Vessantara is reinstated as a king. But in some versions, he is not, he doesn't accept the kingdom and stay as a hermit in the forest. And shower of jewel from Sakka, end of the Vessantara Jatak proper, and the story of the present. The Buddha explains the characters' present personality. For some of the people who study literature, this chiastic structure is very interesting in the Vessantara. They say it's a perfect plot. The way it is structured, it can be classified as one of the greatest of the literature in the world. So, from where do these Vessantara Jataka emerge? So, in India, particularly, in the ancient, 100 BC, this Barut Buddhist site, which is gone now, but they have found this very interesting, rendition of the Vessantara Jataka in Barut in one of the panels. So you can see the white elephant and Vessantara here, and he's giving gift of his white elephant to the crooked Brahmins of Kalinga. And also, this is in Mathura. They have a complete panel of Vessantara Jataka showing 3 episodes. But very interestingly, if you look at the Sanchi gate, the most famous carving, it depicts the episode of Vessantara Jataka. You see Vessantara with his wife, Vessantara with his children, two children, you can see it very clearly, and Vessantara with the crooked Brahmin in the panel. So this if you have seen the Sanchi gate, you can see that Vessantara Jataka is very prominently placed there, and this panel, it depicts the major scenes from the Vessantara Jataka. Such is the importance of Vessantara Jataka. This is from Nagarjuna Konda, where you can see Vessantara, his wife Madri, and Jali and Kannajina. You can see it here. And is of course in Ajanta, it's painted very famously. This is from the cave number 17 of Ajanta, where the Vessantara Jatak is painted. And there are many paintings, many renditions, many narrations of Vessantara Jataka in Burma, in Thailand. So it's a very old sort of a rendition of the Vessantara Jataka from Myanmar, and you can see that it's like cartoons today, cartoon stripe. And in the first, he's making the donation of the white elephant. Then he's asked to leave the kingdom. Then in the third panel, he's sort of giving the donation of everything. Then he and his wife and children, they are in the hermitage in the Mount Vanka. And then Jujuka. Fifth panel shows Jujuka taking away his children forcibly, and in the last, his father Sanjaya is reclaiming his grandchildren. So you see, these are very beautiful paintings. I just put it here to show you the extent of it. So, as I said, that Vessantara Jataka is very famous for in the festivals in Thailand, Burma, Myanmar. So you see here, Jujuka is taking away Jali and Kannajina in the first painting. And in the second, you can see the enactment of that in a dramatized form in the Thailand. The person wearing is acting Jujuka, very wicked, crooked Brahmin. So this is how the procession is held of the Vessantara Jataka with a large sort of banner depicting the various episodes of the Jataka, Vessantara Jataka. These are the rituals in a very serene place. Now, one of the interesting thing why Vessantara Jataka is so popular in the South and Southeast Asian Buddhist countries, because there is a sutra in Thailand called the Phra Malaya Sutta, and according to that sutta, Phra Malaya went to the different cosmological planes in the as narrated in the Buddhist cosmology, and he goes to Tushita and he meets the future Buddha Maitreya, and the future Buddha Maitreya tells him that anyone who reads Vessantara Jataka within 24 hours, he will be born when I am born. So that's what Pramalaya Sutta says, and therefore people try to complete the recitation of the Vessantara Jataka in 24 hours, and by the blessings of that, they think that there is a belief that they will be born at the time of the coming Buddha, that is Maitreya. So you see, there are these very beautiful rituals around Vessantara Jataka. So I thought we cannot read this 100-page Vessantara Jataka, but there is a Arya Shura's rendering of the Vessantara Jataka, and I thought we should read it. It's 14 pages. So have a little bit patience, because it's very interesting story that we can read together. So any volunteers that would like to read, or should I begin with reading 2 pages and then pass it over to you others? So let me begin reading it, 2 pages, and then somebody can take over. Vishwantara, if ordinary beings are not capable of even appreciating the Bodhisattva's actions, how can they follow his example? Such a high ideal for an ordinary people or ordinary person that this Jataka is. In the Sanskrit rendering, Vishwantara is called Vishwa, is the world, and Tara is somebody who protects the world. So Vishwatara, you can understand it like that. But in the Pali tradition, he's born in the town of the Vessa, that is Vaishya, and Antara means the road. So Vessantara. So his name comes from the place where he was born, Vessantara. So let's read it. Once the Shibis, and Shibis are very famous in the Jataka stories. We know the Shibi Jataka, we have touched upon it briefly. Once the Shibis were ruled by a king whose every action was crowned with virtue. Sanjay was his name, a man whose valor, discretion, and modesty kept his passions firmly in check and led him to become victorious and mighty. Because of his great virtue, Glory Faithful, as an honest lover, followed him as fervently as a lion guards its den. Due to his constant and strict respect for the elders, he had mastered the mysteries of the Vedas and the metaphysics. It doesn't come in the Pali rendering, and had become skilled in the administration of justice. His subjects therefore enjoyed the benefit of security and peace and performed their tasks with the utmost joy and devotion. He honored all who came before him, whether they demonstrated their merit in spiritual practices, science, or the arts. Next to him in rank, though in no way inferior in virtue, was his son and heir apparent Vishvantara. Though still a youth, he possessed the tranquil mind of an elder. Though full of energy, he was naturally disposed to patience. Though learned, he was free of conceit. And though mighty and celebrated, he was without a trace of pride. The reputations of all others traveling on the path of virtue paled beside his. He was renowned throughout the three worlds. Vishvantara could not passively endure the great sorrow and countless sufferings of humanity. Against these foes, he waged a mighty battle, shooting innumerable arrows of giving, dana, from his mighty bow of compassion, karuna. Every day he gave to the mendicants without question and without restraint, more than they asked for. He adorned each gift with the kindest words. The prince also strictly observed the holy days, Uposatha. After bathing and donning a garb of white linen, ornamented by tranquility, he would mount his great white elephant, swift and vigorous, its body graced with auspicious marks, its color and size like a peak of the snow mountain. On this fabulous beach, the prince would visit the alms halls. And I'm not able to read this line, so let me check. On the fabulous beach, the prince would visit the alms halls he had established all over the town oases for mendicants, where they would receive whatever they desired. For those inclined to giving, riches yields the greatest pleasure when given to the needy, and the enjoyment of such giving cannot be compared to ordinary joy. Word of such extraordinary charity, proclaimed everywhere by the happy beggars, spread far and wide. Soon a neighboring king heard of Prince's generosity and conceived a crafty plan to rob the prince of his royal elephant by deceiving him through his passion for almsgiving. To bring this about, the rival king dispatched a group of Brahmins to the land of Shibis. As Vishvantara was inspecting the alms halls, his happiness continuously increasing the bright beauty of his face, the shrewd Brahmins, uttering benedictions with uplifted hands, placed themselves directly in his path. Respectfully, the prince stopped his great elephant and asked them their business. Tell me what you have come for, he said, and it shall be granted. We seek your joy in giving, said Brahmins, as well as the qualities of your elephant with its graceful gait. These make us seem like neediest of beggars. Fill the world with astonishment, O prince, present us with this great beast as beautiful as a peak of Mount Kailas, and be joyful. The Bodhisattva was filled with happiness, for it has been a very long time since he had been asked for so great a gift. Yet he considered, what use have these Brahmins for such an elephant? No doubt it's a trick of some king whose sorry mind is clouded with greed, jealousy, and hatred. Still, he must not be disappointed in presenting me with this opportunity. Without care for his own reputation or the precepts of the right action, he is advancing my welfare. Whereupon the great being stepped down from his magnificent elephant and standing
before the Brahmins.
Before the Brahmins, can you read that line?
Golden pitcher uplifted, pronounce solemnly, pray accept this offering.
Okay. Even though the prince knew full well that the science of politics does not follow the path of right conduct where wealth is concerned, he joyfully gave away his elephant out of devotion to the Dharma. And he watched with delight as the great elephant, adorned with its lovely golden lattice, chiastic, massive cloud radiant with the flash of lightning, walked off in the hands of strangers. The citizens, however, who were politically attuned, hearing of their prince's gift, were overwhelmed by distress. The eldest of the Brahmins, ministers, military men, and town people descended on the court of King Sanjaya, his father, Filled with agitation and resentment, they ignored the restraint due their monarch and expressed their anger. How can your majesty sit there and do nothing? The fortune of your kingdom is being carried off and your kingdom is being seriously weakened. The king, alarmed, asked what they meant, and they replied, are you not aware of what your son has done? The splendid beast, whose fragrant face intoxicates the bees and imbues the wind with the sweet perfume that maddens the other proud elephants, that war elephant whose brilliant strength subdued your enemies and lulled their pride to sleep, that embodiment of victory was given away by Vishwantara and at this very moment is being led away. Grain, cloths, food, gold, such are the good fits to give to Brahmins. Parting with our strongest elephant, symbol of our great victory, is no act of charity, but an act contrary to reason. The prince could never rule with success, for he is oblivious to the most basic principles of politics. Forbearance is out of the question in this matter. Your Majesty, do something, lest he bring further comfort to your enemies. So, anybody would like to take over from here?
Okay, I will start.
Okay, sir.
The king loved his son deeply. On hearing such words, he was not kindly disposed towards the speakers. Nevertheless, bowing to expediency in hopes of appeasing their anger, he told them they were right. I know that Vishwantara at times indulges in his passion for charity too much, neglecting the rules of government. And it is true that such behavior is not the wisest for those in charge of ruling. But the act is done. He has tossed away his own elephant like so much film, and who can bring it back? In the future, you can be sure I shall make clear to him the limit of his almsgiving. May this suffice to cool your anger. But the Shibis replied, no, your majesty, that is not enough. He is not the type to be brought to reason by a simple censure. Then what else can be done? Asked Samjaya. It is not that he has sinned, but that his attachment to virtue is perhaps too great. As punishment for his giving away the elephant, do you want his imprisonment or death? Calm yourselves. From this moment on, I shall prevent Vishwantara from any similar actions. Still angry, the Shibis persisted. No one would seek, O king, to ask for your son's death, or imprisonment, or flogging. But devoted as he is to spiritual matters, Vishwantara is not fit to bear the burden of royalty. The tenderness of his heart and his deep compassion are not suitable to such an office. Give the throne to a prince who has mastered the art of politics, whose martial prowess is beyond dispute. Your son, whose love for virtue ignores policy, is fit only to dwell in the grove for ascetics. When princes commit faults of policy, their subjects feel the pain. We can hear such mistakes as we have throughout history, but a fault of this kind undermines the very roots of kingly power. Therefore, we are unable to stand by and watch your ruin, and we have resolved the royal prince must withdraw to Mount Venka, home of the Siddhas, there where it will not harm the government. He may practice charity to his heart's delight. So did the people, moved by affection and love for their sovereign, speak in the frankest possible terms. The king, ashamed and downcast, heaved a deep and sorrowful sigh, overcome by the thought of separation from his son. So be it, he said. What you wish shall be done. Yet Allow my son at least one day and night with me. Tomorrow at daybreak, he shall comply with your request. Finally, the Shibis were satisfied. To his chamberlain, the king said, "Go and tell Vishwantara what has come to pass." And so, his face wet with tears, the minister went directly to the prince and threw himself in despair at the Bodhisattva's feet. "What is the matter?" asked Vishwantara. "Has anyone taken ill?" The other replied in a voice thick with emotion, "No, the royal family is well." "What then is the trouble?" asked the prince. In a faltering voice, full of tears, the chamberlain uttered these words: "My prince, the Sibis, disregarding the royal, will, although presented in the gentlest of terms, have angrily ordered you banished from the realm." "Why are the Shibis angry?" asked Vishwantara. "What you say is beyond all reason. I have never strayed from the path of discipline, never been careless in my duties. What have I done to make the people so incensed against me?" The chamberlain replied, "They are offended by the purity of your mind, your giving away of the foremost of your elephants, O noble prince, tried their patience and moved them to overstep the bounds of duty. Though the satisfaction you experienced came from a complete lack of attachment, what moved those mendicants was nothing but desire. Ignoring that, you have provoked the anger of the town. Now you have no choice but to go the way of the ascetic." Then, to demonstrate his immense patience as well as his deeply rooted affection for mendicants firmly established by his profound compassion, Vishwantara replied, "The Shibis are undependable as they do not understand my nature. It is for the benefit of all sentient beings alone that I support this body. So, what need have I for wealth? Since I would honor the request of beggars even with my own limbs, my eyes, my head, if need be, why not my wealth?" The Shibis, angry at the mendicants, try to restrain me out of fear, thinking I might give up even my body. But their actions only display their foolishness. Even if they were to kill or banish me, nothing would stop me from the practice of giving. With this firmly in mind, I will set out for the grove of the ascetics. Then the Bodhisattva turned to his wife. "You have heard the resolution of the Shibis?" "I have," Madri replied. "Then put aside, fair eyed one, all your property, all that you have received from me, as well as from your father. And what shall I do with it, my lord?" "Give it in charity to those of good conduct, embellishing your gift with respect. Goods deposited in this matter are imperishable, following us even after death. Be a loving daughter to your parents and mine, and a careful mother to our children. Continue to walk the path of right action, alert to any carelessness, but above all, do not mourn my absence." In reply, trying not to arouse the displeasure of her husband, Marjorie suppressed her deep sorrow and said, "It is not right, your majesty, for you to go to the forest alone. Where you go, I must go, my lord. With you, even death would be a festival for me. Life without you would be impossible to bear. Nor do I fear the forest life. Consider it well. We will be living far away from wicked people. Be friended by deer, surrounded by birds, the groves with their carpets of grass, as lovely as flowers inlaid with lapis lazuli, will be far more pleasant than our artificial gardens. Indeed, my prince, you will never think of lost royalty when beholding our children neatly dressed and crowned with garlands, playing among the trees, brooks overhung by bowers, their beauty changing with the seasons, will bring nothing but pleasure. Songs of birds longing for love, dances of peacocks inspired by desire, the sweet buzzing of the honeybees, all will make a forest concert to delight you. Rocks wheeled with the silk overlet of moonlight, stroked by the soft wind, imbued with the scent of flowering trees. Rivulets flowing over rocks, sounding like the sweet clatter of bracelets and rings. Everything in the forest will gladden your heart. With these words, his wife filled Vishwantara with desire to start his journey, but first he prepared to give away all his wealth to the indigent. In the king's palace, news of the banishment has caused great alarm, and the mendicants were almost beside themselves with sorrow and grief. As though intoxicated or mad, they lamented, alas, injustice is awake, and virtue asleep, or dead Prince Vishwantara had been banished from his kingdom. Earth herself has become unfeeling. They have chopped down her foster child, that refreshing shade tree, that provider of the fine fruit. Yet she does nothing. How can she feel no shame? They have blocked off our well of sweet water, pure and cool. The guardians of the world are falsely titled, or else they do not exist. Their names were sounds. Who could be so malicious and so opposed to life itself that they would destroy our means of livelihood? We who are harmless, who survive only by begging. But now Vishwantara appeared before them to give away his wealth. And so the prince bestowed on the mendicants the contents of his treasury, which was filled to the brim with gold and silver and precious stones of priceless value. Then came stones of goods and grains, crammed to overflowing, slaves, both male and female, beasts of burden, carriages, clothes, and more. All of this he distributed according to the merit of the recipient. Finally, after paying his respects of his grief stricken parents, he mounted his royal chariot and, with his wife and children, took leave of the capital. The streets were as noisy as on holiday, as hundreds of people cried lamentations, following him out of love and affection, shedding tears of sorrow. Only with the greatest difficulty did Vishwantara make the crowd turn back. Totally calm and clear, he took his last view of the outskirts of the city with its charming gardens and groves. Then, taking the reins, he turned towards the direction of Mount Venka. The crowds, the crowds on the roads thinned out, and soon the chirping of crickets told the prince that the forest was near at hand. Groves of trees began to appear, and herds of antelope could be seen running in the distance. And then, as if by chance, a group of Brahmins drew near. Approaching the prince, the mendicants asked the prince for the horses that drew the chariot. Although he was undertaking a journey of many miles without attendants, although he was burdened with his family, Vishwantara nonetheless rejoiced at his opportunity for giving. Without a care for what would follow, he joyfully gave his 4 horses to the beggars, and fastening the harness tightly around his waist, he began to pull the chariot himself. But before he could move, 4 young yakshas in the shape of red deer appeared suddenly out of a thicket, and like well-trained horses took up the burden themselves. Behold the extraordinary power of those who live in the blessed groves, home of the ascetics, said the Bodhisattva. Their feelings of loving kindness towards guests have even taken root in the beautiful deer. But Madri, staring at the lovely beast with joy and surprise, answered, "This is rather a result of your own virtuous accomplishments. Even the great practitioners are not your equal. When the shining reflection of stars in the water is surpassed by the luster of the laughing night lotuses, do you look to the flowers for the cause or to the beams of the radiant moon?"
Anybody would like to read a few pages? Any volunteers?
Or should I continue if no one
Okay,
is there?
okay, you can continue.
As they continued to speak sweet words of affection, another Brahman came near and asked the Bodhisattva for his royal chariot. And the prince, as indifferent to his own comfort as he was a loving kinsman to all beggars, fulfilled the Brahman's wish. Joyfully, he asked his family to dismount from the chariot and gladly presented the vehicle straight away to the Brahman. The prince took Galen, the boy, in his arms and continued on his way, while Madri, also free from distress, carried the girl Krishna Gina and followed by his side. With gracious hospitality, the trees of the forest stretched out their fruit filled branches to the Bodhisattva as if he were a welcome guest, paying homage to the strength of the merit manifesting before them. The trees bowed like obedient disciples as he came into view. And when the Bodhisattva longed for water, lotus ponds appeared, sprinkled with pollen, white and reddish brown, shaken from flowers by wings and swans. As clouds spread their beautiful canopy, and cool, perfumed winds blew softly, his path was shortened by yakshas who could not bear to see his labor or weariness. In this way, their journey was transformed into a most leisurely stroll in a pleasure garden. At last, Mount Venka came into view and shown the way by foresters. They climbed to the groves of the ascetics. There they found a lovely spot, encircled by a river of purest blue and blessed by a cooling, fragrant breeze and an abundance of smooth bark trees, bedecked with brilliant flowers and luscious fruit, birds singing lusty songs, many kings of deer and troops of strutting peacocks made the spot even lovelier. In the center of the grove was a hut covered with leaves, beautiful to behold and comfortable in every season, built by order of Shakra himself. In this garden, in the company of his beloved wife, enjoying the
Okay, I will do.
sweet prattle of his children.
Shall I read?
Okay.
Sunny is ready, I think.
Okay, Gautam.
Ah.
Yes.
Sweet battles of his children, never thinking of the cares of royalty, the Bodhisattva devoted himself wholeheartedly to spiritual practices for full half a year. Then, one day, when the princess had gone to seek roots and food, and the prince had remained at the heritage watching the children, then there appeared before him an old and tired Brahman who had been sent by his wife on an urgent errand to acquire servant to do her work. His feet and ankles were steeped with the dust of his journey. His eyes and cheeks were sunken with weariness, and he bore on his shoulder the water pot of mendicant. Catching sight of this beggar, this the first he had seen is so long a time. The Bodhisattva rejoiced. With sparkling eyes and smiling face, he went to greet the Brahmin. He welcomed him with kind words and then led the old man to his hermitage, where he treated him with the respect due a grace. The prince then asked the Brahman, "What kind sir has brought you to this forest?" The Brahman, virtue and shame forgotten in the blind love he held for his wife, impatient to ask and obtain what he had come for, replied, "Where there is a bright light and an even rod, it is easy to travel. But in the world, the darkness of selfishness prevails, so that no other would respond to my request. The fame of your heroic al- almsgiving have traveled all over the world, and so I have came all this way to beg from you. Give me both your children to be my servants." And Bodhisattva, the great being, accustomed to always giving jealously and never having learned to say no, bravely and without hesitation said that he would give both his dear children to the Brahman. "Bless you," said the Brahman. "We will go now." But the children, having overheard, overheard their father, began to weep in great distress. So strong was the love of the Bodhisattva for the children that he became heartsick with despair. I, I have given the children too.
Changed.
Uh, You, but their mother is not at home. She went to gather roots and herbs in the forest and will not return until evening. Let her see them one more time, neatly arrayed as they are now. Let her kiss them goodbye. You may rest the night here, and tomorrow you may take them away. But the Brahman replied, "Now things are changing. Women are beautiful. Women are persuasive. She will hinder your resolve. I do not wish to stay here any longer. Do not uh, think in that way." The Bodhisattva replied, "My wife will not obstruct this gift. She shared my practice. Do you please, great Brahman, yet consider this? How can the children be satisfactory servants? They are young and weak and have never done work of that nature. But if the king of Thebes, their grandfather, should discover them in bondage, he would give you as much money as you desire in order to redeem them. If you take the children to him, his realm, you will win much wealth while walking in the path of virtue. No, said the Brahman. I have no intention of going near him. Such a such an offer is sure to anger him. He would be no more worth approaching than a snake. Surely he would have the children torn from me by force, and probably punish me as well. No, I shall take them to my wife. She needs servant to wait on her. Then, as you will, said the Bodhisattva, and after gently instructing the little ones on how to act as servant, he took the Brahman's water pot and tipped it over the Brahman's obstructed hand, thus satisfying the gift. Water poured from the spot as tears fell from his eyes now the color of dark red lotus petals. Overcome by the success of his greed and charged with excitement, the Brahman mumbled a short phrase of benediction. Then, with the harsh command, he ordered the children to go before him. But unable to bear the grief of separation, the weeping children embraced their father's feet, crying, "Please do not give us away while mother is gone. Do not let us go until we can say goodbye." The Brahman thought, once the mother returns, all is lost. If I do not leave this instant, in fact, the father's love will cause him to repent. And so with a vine, he tied the children's hands as if they were a bundle of lotuses, and began to drag the children away with him, threatening them all the while. Gina, the girl, never having experienced a moment's distress, cried out to her father, "This cruel man is hurting me, father. He is no Brahman. Brahmans are virtuous people. He is an ogre in disguise. Once he gets us away, he will eat us. Why are you letting this or take us away, father?" And Galen, the boy cried, "The beating of the Brahman are not nearly so bad as never seeing my mother again. My heart is broken. When she comes back to find us gone, the hermitage empty, she will weep and weep like the raindrop birds whose babies were killed. She has gone to the forest to pick fruits and gather roots. When she returns to the empty hut, what, what will she do? Her father take our toys, horses, elephants, and chariots, give half to mother to comfort her. Tell her goodbye for us and don't let her cry. For it will be hard to us, father, to ever see you and our mother again. Come, Krishna, let us go. Father wishes us to be their Brahman servant and has given us away. What does it matter even if we die? Then they were gone. The Bodhisattva, through his mind, was shaken by this heart-rending crisis, had not moved from where he was seated. He told himself over and over and again that it was not right to regret having given, but his heart burned with grief, and his mind grew troubled and numb, as if clouded with poison. But soon the gentle fanning of the cool wind helped him recover his senses. Seeing the hermitage empty and silent, he said to himself in a
Volunteers?
voice choked.
Yes, I will read.
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
sir, if I may so.
Okay,
I
let her
can
read.
read.
Okay, you can read, then Sunny will follow.
Yes. Choked with tears. How did he avoid piercing my very heart when taking my heart from me? That false, shameless Brahmin. How can they make such a journey? Barefoot and tender, they are too young to bear such hardship. How can they be servants of that man who will comfort them when they are tired and weary? Who is there to help them when they feel hungry and thirsty? If this sorrow strikes even me, steadfast and firm, what will they feel brought up in ease? Alas, this separation from my children burns my mind like the hungriest fire. But who, following the path of virtue, could repent a gift once given? During this time, Madri had been disturbed by ill omens. Disappointed by her intuition, she had been attempting to return as quickly as possible with her fruits and roots to the hermitage. But her path was blocked by ferocious animals, and she was forced to take a long and circuitous route. When her children failed to greet her at the usual place, she when she failed to see them where they were accustomed to play, her uneasiness increased. Fearing the worst, anxious and distressed, she searched everywhere, calling out their names, but there was no reply. Full of grief, she cried. A hermitage resounding with the shouts of my children seemed to me a busy village. Now, when I do not see them, it seems to me a frightening wilderness. Perhaps they have fallen asleep, tired from too much playing, or maybe they are lost somewhere in the thicket. But perhaps in childishness they grew annoyed that I was so long in coming and are only hiding. Yet why are the birds no longer singing? They have been witness to some awful mischief, or could my young ones have fallen into the rapid stream and been carried away by the dashing current? May my suspicion prove groundless. May the prince and children both be safe and well. May these feelings of foreboding and find fulfillment on my own body. But why then is my heart heavy with sadness at the mere thought of my children? Why is my heart wrapped in this shout of sorrow, like a stone about to sink? Why are my limbs so weak, my eyes grow dim? Why does this very grove seem to spin about? Reaching the ground, Reaching the grounds of hermitage, she put down her baskets of fruits and approached Vishwantara. Performing the usual salutation, she asked for the children. But the Bodhisattva, knowing well the strength of the mother's love, was powerless to answer. Indeed, one who is kind finds it supremely difficult to bring suffering to another who is hoping against hope to receive pleasant news. Then Madri thought, his misery and silence can only mean one thing. Something terrible has happened to the children. In a daze, she stood completely still and once more let her eyes search the hermitage. Then, in a voice broken with tears, she said, I do not see my children, and you say nothing. Alas, your silence speaks some great evil. The sorrow piercing her heart completely overpowered her, and like a vine violently severed, she suddenly collapsed. The Bodhisattva, preventing her from falling to the ground, carried her in his arms to the grass couch where sprinkled with cold water, she soon recovered her senses. I did not say anything, my Madri, he said, for now can one expect firmness from a mind weak with love? A Brahmin suffering from old age and poverty came to me, and I gave him both our children. Be content and do not mourn. Look at me, Madri. Do not look for the children. Do not cry. Do not strike my heart again, for it is already pierced by the sorrow, by the arrow of sorrow. When asked for my life, I would I would be able to withhold it.
Sunny, you want to read?
Yes, sir, sure. Am I audible, sir?
Yes,
Enough?
perfect, perfect.
Think of this, my love, and rejoice at the gifts I have made. Hearing that her children were still alive, her suspicion of their death removed, Madri soon recovered from her fright. She was wiping away her tears in hopes of strengthening her husband's resolve when, looking up, she beheld a sight that filled her with amazement. Oh, wonderful! Oh, strange! The gods have been swept away by admiration for your heart, which is forever untouched by selfish feelings. Listen to the drums of the gods, echoing in all directions, with a hymn, with a hymn the heavens have composed to celebrate your glory. The earth shakes, trembling in exultation. The mountains heave with joy. Golden flowers, like lightning, are falling from heaven and illuminating the sky. Let us then put aside this grief and sadness. What have you done in charity should only brighten your mind. Become once more the well of benefit to all creatures, a giver as before. Now, the surface of the earth being shaken, Sumeru, the brilliant jewel covered lord of mountains, began to tremble, so that even Sakra, lord of the gods, became curious and asked the cause of such disturbance. The guardians of the world, eyes wide with amazement, told him the story of and Shakra, Vishwantara. And Shakra, moved by joy and surprise, went to visit the prince the very next day. After first making, after first taking on the appearance of a Brahmin, as was as was his custom, the Bodhisattva showed the Brahman the hospitality due a guest, and then asked what had brought him to the hermitage. Give me your wife, said Shakra. The virtuous never stop giving until the oceans run dry. For this reason, I asked you for that woman there who has the features of a goddess. Give her to me. And still, the Bodhisattva maintained his firmness of mind by promising his wife to the Brahman. Taking Madri's hand with his left hand, holding the water pot with the right, he poured water on the hand of the Brahman and so poured the fire of grief on the heart of the demon Mara, who rules the realm of desire. No anger rose in Madri's breast, nor did she weep, knowing her husband's nature. But her eyes remained fixed on him as she stood as rigid as a statue, stupefied by this fresh burden of suffering. Beholding this scene, Shakra, lord of the gods, was touched by the most profound admiration, and he cried out, oh, the wide distance that separates the virtuous from the wicked! Could anyone without the purest of hearts even begin to believe this extraordinary sacrifice? To cherish a loving wife, to cherish a loving wife and children, yet to give them up to the vow of detachment. Is it possible to even conceive of such nobleness? Once your glory is spread throughout the world by the tales of those devoted to your virtues, the brilliant reputation of others will pale beside yours, as even the brightest stars disappear in the splendor of sunlight. Your superhuman qualities are resoundingly applauded by all the yakshas, the nagas, and the gods, including even Shakra himself. Shakra then assumed his own brilliant shape and revealed himself to the Bodhisattva. I now return to you, Madri, your wife. Where else should moonlight stay but with the moon? And do not grieve for the separation from your son and daughter. or for the loss of your kingdom. Before long, your father will arrive, accompanied by both children, and re establish you in the highest rank, thus providing his kingdom with its finest protector. Then Shakra vanished on the spot, and the old Brahman, bowing to the Shakra's power, at once led the Bodhisattva's children to the land of the Shibis. When the people and their king heard of the extraordinary compassion of their absent prince, their hearts were softened with tenderness, redeeming the children from the lands of the Brahman. They went on a pilgrimage to Vishwantara, and after obtaining his pardon, led him back to his home to sit in glorious splendor on his royal throne. From this story, one can see the marvelous behavior of a bodhisattva. It is clear that the distinguished beings who strive for that state must not be despised or hindered. The story may also be applied when discussing how to listen to the teachings with attention and when praising the qualities of the Tathagata.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. This is a very incredible story, and this is our Sanskrit rendering. And I recommend you all to read the Pali translation, which runs into 100 pages. And the way the story is told in this Pali Atthakatha is so wonderful. The way it creates the picture of the forest, the character of Jujuka and his wife, and the village gossip, and everything is so detailed laid down in the Pali Atthakatha, the Vessantara Jataka. It's as some of the scholars have been saying that it can be the one of the words, greatest of the literature. So I recommend all, because this is a class where we have 1.5 hours. We cannot read the 100 pages. So this is the story in a nutshell, which doesn't do justice to the original story. And I recommend you, as I said, please read it there, and you appreciate the inner structure, the beauty, the kind of imagination, the kind of the teachings. So there is a lot of study on this particular Jataka, Vesantara Jataka, and particularly the perfect generosity of Prince Vesantara, which is translated by the two leading scholars, Pali scholars, Margaret Cohn and Richard Gombrich. They have done it, uh, they have done the translation from Pali, and also the paintings in the Sri Lankan temples. So it's like a comic book, but it's very, very dense with research and very wonderfully done book. Recently published this Vessantara Jataka, readings of the Vessantara Jataka, edited by Stephen Collins. Have a lot of articles from the great scholars, and this book by Catherine Bowe. It's a wonderful book. It's an anthropological work that goes into how Jataka story has, the story itself has been in the transformation. The villain of the story, Jujuka, who is Devadatta in the present times, is now getting so much popularity that there are temples devoted to Jujuka in Thailand. And this is Jujuka represents all that is against the Buddhist values. And the way the Vesantara Jataka also very subtly criticizes Brahmanism and the Brahmins and their way of life. So you see, these are some very interesting sort of ideas that are there. I'm going to go through some of them. I'm not going to go through a lot. For example, Stephen Collins, in the preface, he analyzes saying that this particular Vesantara Jataka is the most important civilizational literary achievement. That's what Steve Collins says. And he says Pali literature, like Vesantara, explores value conflict rather than ignoring and solving them. The normative literature is about, resolving the value conflict, that these are the 5 precepts that one has to practice. This is what one has to do. But a literature like this, particularly Vessantara Jataka, it explores value conflict. And it's a story of the great generosity. It's an offensive story because it offends the complete ethos of the society, that people are so attached to their family, so attached to everything, wealth and all power. But here is Vessantara who is offending the society. And he says, elsewhere, Shiv Collins says that, the Sangha itself is an offense to the society because he is going against the grains of the society. So this is a very interesting sort of, story. And also, Steve Collins says that the Jatakas are all about the 5 precepts. But it says in the Vessantara Jataka, Vessantara comes very close to breaking all the precepts. He says when Jujaka, the evil Brahman, takes the children for the last and final time, Vessantara considers going after him to kill him. So he's so pained with the way Jujaka behaves with his children, tying their hands and carrying them like the cattle. That's what is narrated in the Pali rendering, the Pali Attakatha. Very cruel, the Brahmin who tries to drag the children away, beating them with the well. And this is what, when Vesantara sees them, he is so angry inside that he thinks of going after him and killing him. So the first one, precept. At the same time, he considered taking the children back by force, Adinadana, but refrains himself with the acknowledgement that it's wrong to take back a gift. He does not offend against the third precept directly, although he does revert to being an affectionate, though not sexually passionate husband when Madi faints. And then he deceives Madi, because in Madi sees the dream. In the Pali Attakatha, she sees the dream before the day her children are taken away. And Vesantara knew the meaning of the dream, but he tells her a lie, saying that uh, her dream is not what she is interpreting. And he, in his longing to give the children away, he's like a drunkard eager for a drink. So you see, there is a value conflict, as Steve has brought up in the story, and he has gone into depth about explaining various meanings of these symbols or the images in the Vesantara Jataka. Another interesting image is of the good forest and the bad forest. So the forest is lauded in the Buddhist Jatakas. For example, the life of ascetic, where they have a beautiful hermitage, they have a river flowing, they have the way Madri described the Himalayas in the Pali Attakatha. It's very interesting the way she describes the Himalayas, because she comes from the Himalaya. She's from the Himalayas itself. And this is a description of a good forest, but there is also a description of the bad forest, as the forest as something hostile. So Steve goes into these very interesting concepts in the introduction of this great book on that. I have already sent it in the group. Then he also talks about in the Pali how Vesantara Jatak contained in the Jataka canon, in Charya Pitak. Then in the Sanskrit we have read Areshura Jataka Mala. Then there is in the Katha Saritra Sagar, there is also a story of Vesantara. Then in Tibet and in Nepal and in China. And there are many stories in vernacular language. In Sinhala itself, in the vernacular Sinhala, there is the story of the Jataka story. So, you see, Jataka has been a part and parcel of a Buddhist, narrative history for a long time. Even the question of King Milinda. Milinda questions Vesantara as to how he can give his children, how he can give his wife. They don't belong to him. How can he give other people? And the justification that the Naksena gives is very interesting, that he says that it was for the sake of the omniscience, for the sake of enlightenment, a person should be able to sacrifice everything. And he says that the children were like the boats to carry Vesantara from this shore to that shore. So as for in the Milinda king questions of Milinda, there is a reference to the Vesantara Jataka. Then there was a criticism of Vessantara Jataka in what is called in the Thai society, and there is an interesting paper written by Louis Dabout about the moral and economic critique. The prime minister candidate that time in the 70s of Thailand, he has criticized the Vessantara Jataka. His name is Kukrit, Pamoda Kukrit. He became the prime minister of Thailand. He criticized the moral and the economic of the Vessantara himself. And there is also political critique, and there is a feminist critique as to how somebody can treat his wife like that. And there is a criticism by Kornvipa Bunsui. She says that the Jataka literature, they distort the feminine identity in 5 ways. She says women is a matter, the womb, while man is the soul. the form who comes to look for his final liberation. Women is being with material craving, longing for physical beauty. Women is an object under male's possession. Vesantara gave 700 women before giving Madri. That's what is in the Pali version. Women and the image of feminine morality. A wife always obeys her husband to be. Man is the decision maker, women the follower. But there is also another interesting defense of the Vesantara Jatak, where the relationship between Madri and Vesantara is shown as equal, and the locus of their practice is family. So there is also what is called the classical defense and the modernist defense of Vessantara Jataka in Thailand. Classical defense, was this, that it is the part and parcel of the Buddhist, heritage. It forms the part of the corpus of the Buddhist canonical literature. But this is a very interesting modernist defense by the followers of Bhikshu Buddha Dasa, who is known for interpreting the every single word. And there is a follower of Venerable Buddha Das, one of the great monks of our times, and he talks about how the Vesantara Jataka can be interpreted differently in the modern times, in the language of the Dhamma language. So I think this is a very interesting sort of a way to look at the pros and cons of the Vesantara Jataka in Thailand. And there is there is another paper. I will forward this book by Patrice Ladwig, about emotions and narrative in terms of the Laos. And he makes very interesting points in that. But one of the interesting points that he makes about this particular dialect, Jataka, in the context of the Laos, that it offers the dialectics of the conflict resolution. And it's a very interesting paper. Because we don't have time, we won't go into that. And in Nepal, there is a different ending altogether. And the Vesantara doesn't, become the king again. He remains in the forest and practices the ascetic path. And in Nepal, there are the rituals around the Jatak, Vesantara Jataka, and there are a lot of interesting things. But this is a very interesting sort of last remarks. Particularly, there is a beautiful book, as I showed you, by Catherine Bowie, and she shows how the Vesantara Jatak has been transforming and under transformation in Thailand. So in the central part, the frequency of performing the Vesantara Jatak is declining. In Northeast, it's annual, and in North, rare. She shows when the rituals around the Vesantara or the dramas are played. And here you can see very clearly that in different parts of Thailand, the different parts of chapters of 13 chapters. There are 13 chapters, like the Judaka chapter is very popular in North, and it has become a kind of weapon of the weak to challenge the royalty and to challenge the government officials. So there is a lot in that in terms of the anthropological or ethnographic work. But we are not going to go into that. But it shows how the Vesantara Jatak has been transformed from the antiquity to the present times. In the context of Thailand, in different regions, parts of the Thailand. And she also shows that how Jujaka, the villain of the Vesantara Jatak, has come into a prominence in Thailand. So you see, there are these choir dancers at Jujaka house. Choir dancers pay their respect to Jujaka before their performance, and the photographs are taken by her. It is a Jujaka procession in Thailand. So you see, there is a lot about this particular Jataka that we can go into. And as I said, this is the most important, the most important literary document in the Buddhist history. So there is a lot on both the sides, pros and cons. But as Stephen says, that this sort of literature, it doesn't resolve the values. It brings forth the contradictions between the values. The Ati Dana of Vesantara, and us. We are Even we find it very difficult to part away with smaller possessions. But look at the Vesantara, the way he goes all out to even donate his kingdom, wealth, his children, his wife. The very difficult to part with the children, and he does it. So you see, these are very interesting sort of the readings of Jataka that one can see. And there is a lot. I will share in the group this material so that you can look for yourself as to the how it can challenges your own sort of ethos and your own sort of ethical system. So I will stop here and open up the class for another 10 minutes of discussion. Okay. So anything on that? Anybody has anything to say on that? It's a long class, it's a long read, but I thought that we should read some version of Vesantara so that we will get an idea. But I recommend this big version, the large version, which comes from Pali, translated by Sarasha very beautifully, and I have forwarded that PDF file in the group. And also Margaret Cohn, and Robert Richard Gombrey's version is also very interesting, and a take on that. So that unfortunately the story emerged in India. It originated from India, but it's vanished from India. It said that as I said in the beginning, that this will be if the story vanishes, that will the beginning of the end of Buddhist era. That's what they say in the Buddhist tradition. So you see, there on one hand there is a text, the written text, which we have to read and engage with. But on the other hand, there is the entire society that is doing something with the text, rituals and festivals. There are big festivals. There are postcards. There are, amulets around the Jataka, particularly now the materialistic society has been particularly in some parts of Thailand, they are having the Jujaka uh, amulets, because Jujaka apparently got everything. He got a wife, very young wife. He was old man, but he got a very young, beautiful wife, Amita Tappana. And he got wealth, he got, serf slaves, and ultimately he gets so much wealth from the Emperor Sanjaya, but he dies of overeating. He has a feast and he dies of overeating. So he's that particular episode of overeating and his stomach bursting and everything, exploding, and his content of his stomach is flowing everywhere. These are all depictions in the Buddhist world of Jujaka's death. So you see, and there is a procession of the death procession of Jujaka. So you see, it is all enacted. The scenes are enacted, extended. There are many variations, many versions, many tellings of the Vessantara Jataka. So long, there are many variations, many tellings, there are many readings and many practices around the Vessantara Jataka. So I will stop here and open up it for any comment from anybody.
Jai Bhim, Dr. Saab.
Yes, Umesh.
Thank you so much for presenting these 6 wonderful sessions, and we came across the Jataka in a very different perspective. I want to know about the things, and this question will appeal to Vishakha and Ken. As I have searched the volumes they have written on these topics. The anthropology of the zeal that you have found in all putting all these thoughts together, and what is the way out that we should also get those light and should move ahead, please.
As the aim of these classes to begin with was to make people, particularly in India, to appreciate the narrative literature, because it's as important as the normative literature. And the stories are the great device to make us understand certain things which we cannot understand just by dabbling or playing with the ideas. There are values. We are also emotional. So stories, they move something within us. They move something deeper in us. They teach us something, which cannot be ordinarily taught. So I think, these stories become the part of the culture and they start influencing the minds of the people. For example, in Sri Lanka, there was a king, Parakrama Bahu, who made.
Translation. Do they know about the translations
Yeah, book.
of Jataka?
Yeah. So Parakrama Bahu was a king who got all the, Jataka translated in Sinhala, and he
Do these people
disseminated
know
across
that
the
the
Sri
big
Lanka so that people can, become educated. And this was his way to educate the Sri Lankan people in the past. So Ken and Vishaka, do you have anything, any comment?
Thank you. Yes. The Jatakas are the way that we became Buddhists in Sanchi many, many years ago. It was very hot, and we found them in the library at the Mahabodhi guest house where we were staying. The monk said, please use the fan in the library because it's too hot to be out in the afternoon. So we did, and we found the Jatakas, and it changed our lives completely. And it's how we found Buddhism really and realized that we were Buddhist. And so it's been a great part of our lives. And
That was the beginning of our retelling the Jataka, which ended up in 2010. We finally finished the book, The Jataka Tales of the Buddha, an anthology, 217 stories, which will be available very soon with you. We have sent them to you, Mangesh, for you to distribute in India.
Yes.
I want to also say that from using our selection of them, the 3 volumes, they're being translated into, first volume is translated into Russian and
Wow.
Ukrainian, and they are being used for meditation by the what group?
International Meditation Center.
International Meditation Center are meditating with people in both Russia and in Ukraine, using the Jatakas as the basis for the meditation.
Wow.
A Tibetan group is translated them into Spanish, and they're using them all over South America for missionary work. They're bringing people to Buddhism in how many countries? Anyway, all over South America by using them in Spanish. And there's a French translation being worked on right now. So I don't know. I think they're so human and so moving. It makes Dhamma so accessible that we're so grateful that we found them in our lives. Thank you. It's really lovely to see this group and to hear what you're doing and to be part of it. Many, many thanks. It's wonderful.
Always welcome. This is the Jataka Tales Volume 3 that I received a few years back. A very interesting sort of a package, I would say. And Ken and Vishaka sent me some copies. This is very cheap, not very expensive. They are very well done, and I think everybody should have it. And if you are interested, just let me know in the group so that I can dispatch you within India. So they have shipped it from Sri Lanka. They are published in Sri Lanka. So, they are very precious, I would say. And everybody should have the copies of them. They are very interesting sort of the books. So,
Mangesh,
yes,
this is Prant here.
Yeah.
Are these kind of publications that are available for buying, or what is it?
For buying, because I think it's a publishing. They are published by Buddhist Cultural Center.
Is there a way for it to be posted to Australia at all?
That done, I think, Prashant. Ask Ken and Vishaga.
Okay, Ken.
To Australia, of course.
Yes. Okay. If you go to our website, I think we said we put the flyer. Well, the website berelief.org. You go to our website.
Are you able to put the link of your website on the chat here?
We can send to Australia. Yes.
We can send anywhere.
Excellent.
Right now, Sri Lanka has postal.
Anywhere in the world we can send. In India, Mangesh will have them in a couple of weeks. We send them to him. Anywhere else in the world, send to us.
Thank you. If you can put the link to your website on the chat here, that would be mighty helpful.
Okay, we'll do that.
Absolutely. And anyway, we if anyone wants to be in touch with us by email, we'd be happy to put you on our mailing list too, because we're doing this, that, and the other thing as Buddhist Relief Mission. So anyway, we welcome communication. We don't travel anymore. We used to go to India a lot. We used to go a lot of places. We're too old to travel, and the internet is so important to us. We'd love to have good Buddhist friends and hear what you're doing and whatever is happening. I'm so grateful for Mangesh for introducing us to everyone and broadening our horizons. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken and Vishaka. You have been a great resource for this particular course, and I cannot thank you enough. But if there is nothing else, to
Sir,
yes.
these Ken and Vishaka being a literary monks,
Yeah.
we are the beginners. So can you guide us to start with and to lead their life the Buddhist way with this all the thoughts that you have gathered from the literature of Buddhism?
Some years ago, we made we traveled for 1 year. We were living in Japan. We went back to the States, and it was a Buddhist trip in a way, although we weren't really a Buddhist at that time. We were interested in the art. And so we traveled, we met Buddhists as we traveled from Korea all the way back to the US. And we took a lot of pictures, a lot of slides, I mean, thousands, and sent them back to my mother, and they were developed. And we got back, and there was this huge mass of Buddhist slides. And so what we did, we were learning. This was how we learned. We put the slides together, and that video is available on our YouTube channel. It's an early telling of what Buddhism is and the life of the Buddha through art, and with some chanting and so forth. We'd be very happy to share that. It's available as well. You have to realize that we were beginners and this is how we learned. So it's not very sophisticated. It's certainly not scholarly, but it was a great teaching for us. I mean, to do it, to put it together. We had to do the research and get it ready. Then later we worked in refugee camps and we learned from our Buddhist students from in Thailand and Philippines. We had Lao, Khmer, Cambodian, and Vietnamese students that we were teaching English to. That was our job. We were supervisors and curriculum developers for a big program, but we learned from them. And we learned meditation in a Vietnamese temple at first and so forth. So it's always been learning for us. It's a funny way, but we tried to record so much of that, and we're so grateful, so grateful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We want to be, let's become friends. I mean, we're on Facebook, but Facebook is not everybody's cup of tea. But we also have the website, and we welcome communication with people around the world as much as we can.
Sure, we will.
Yeah,
Sure.
please do write. We'd love to know about you and meet you
Yeah.
that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
And if
much.
anyone is coming to Sri Lanka, please let us know. We have a big, spacious house, and kind of in the jungle in Kandy, and we welcome visitors. We love to have people come and stay because we don't travel anymore.
That's a very generous offer, huh? We a lot of Indians might flock around you.
We're very close.
Okay, so here comes a time where yes.
Sorry, just confirming. I am
Yeah.
going through the chat here.
Hmm.
www.brelief.org. Is that the website where I need to go, Ken or Vishaka?
Yes. Go to berelief.org. You will find everything. The Jataka and Strive Out with Diligence YouTube, our video.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay. Thank you so much.
www.berelief.org.
And does that also have your contact details on that?
Yes, everything is there.
And
Yeah.
the website has got all sorts of things about what we're doing and reports and everything. We also like to make things like crossword puzzles and Buddhist games because we're teachers. We've been teaching English between us 100 years, 50-50. So we have lots of materials like that as well. And we did one book of Buddha's 8 great victories. The Mangala got the stories to teach nonviolence because we also have a class that we're teaching a Zoom class. It's an English class for most of our students are Burmese, but we have some Vietnamese and Chinese and Sri Lankan monks and nuns every Sunday. Right now we're starting the what is it? The 16 Dreams. Jataka tomorrow.
Here in,
We'll be starting that.
here
Yeah.
in Australia, in Sydney, we have a small group called Ambedkar International Mission, which conducts some Sunday classes on Buddhism because being so away from the home, just trying to
Oh, wonderful.
keep our roots grounded into Buddhism. And try to teach our kids about Buddhism. We try to take them through a bit of Buddhist stories and all that. And I would be very delighted and honored to have you both on a few of those classes if that is possible for you guys. I'll be in communication with you through that email address that you have, and we'll talk separately on that. Is
Great.
that okay?
Oh, that's wonderful. That's
So
very
the Zoom session.
Zoom
Zoom.
sessions? Oh,
Zoom sessions.
oh, fantastic.
So please send us a link and the time, and we'll see if we can join.
Yeah, these are for young people.
Yes, yes. Kids ranging from 5 years to 10, 12, or early teenagers.
Oh, fantastic. We've got, I mean, because we used to teach novices, we have lots of material for young people that we can make available if it's good. I mean, we were teaching English, but we were teaching English with Buddhism because we were teaching novices. That's wonderful. Oh, very exciting. Thank you.
Here you go. All right. Nice meeting you guys. Thank you.
So, this has been a wonderful, wonderful 6 weeks course, and we have covered a lot of ground. And I hope you will keep on going back to the material because that has been, this is very, we have assembled it very nicely in the 6 sessions, and you can continue to go back to that. And I thank you all for joining in. It's not easy to sustain for 6 weeks on online course, and a lot of you have been there for continuously for 6 weeks, and maintaining even the 20 or 25 or even 30 people in a Zoom session is something I think is extraordinary. And the YouTube videos are doing very well. They are reaching out to a lot of people. So I think this task will generate some interest in Jataka. At this moment in India, there is not much interest in Jataka, but I hope that with small efforts we can make people aware of the potential of the Jataka in terms of the Buddhist education project. So thank you all, and see you in the next course whenever we plan that. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Very
Thank you very
wonderful.
much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.